For months, I've been watching Triple H's Reign of Terror to see if it's as bad as they say. I tried to stay open-minded, but yeah, it was rough to say the least. Now, here's my ranking of the matches from worst to best in that dark era. Number 29 and 28. Where do I begin? That whack-ass build to the Rumble 03. Can someone explain to me how seeing these two in a dick measuring contest is supposed to entice me into watching their match? Why do I need to watch two grown men oil up and flex their muscles to the point it feels uncomfortable? Why do I need to see them arm wrestle? Why do I need to see them do push-ups? Why? But hey, you reap what you sow. And what do we reap? A 17-minute match that turned into a 17-hour match 170 seconds in. Scott Steiner can't work. Triple H doesn't want to work. Suplexes galore. DQ finish. And it was so good we got the rematch at No Way Out. The build-up to that was nothing. They traded verbal jabs. Evolution was formed on the corpse of Scott Steiner's character. And then they had the same match. Except it was shorter. And nobody cared. And none of them lived happily ever after. The end. Well, what's next? Oh, look, just follow along because this story was something. Triple H, who had been World Heavyweight Champion for under a month, is fresh off a boring RVD match as a first title defense. Yes, a boring RVD match. Meanwhile, Kane, who secured the Intercontinental title and retained the World Tag Team titles, is riding high. So, what does WWE do to capitalize off this? Kickstart a controversial storyline accusing Kane of murdering Katie Vick, add comedy, and throw in Triple H with a Kane mask. As for the match? Boring. I mean, it's one thing when this is part of the build, but what the hell was this match? Triple H, during his Ric Flair phase, really slowed the pace. There was pointless Flair, hurricane stuff. Kane, with no rage or anger in his eyes, is just going with the flow after being slandered for weeks and just loses. And the funny thing about all this? The fact they tried to give Kane his win back over a week later just to be overshadowed by Shawn Michaels' return. Who even wrote this storyline? Oh. This was a horrible way for the World Heavyweight Championship to close out 2003, and that's saying something considering what happened in 2003. Triple H and Goldberg had just finished torturing the audience with two boring matches and had set their sights on concluding their story at Armageddon. These matches, might I add, had gotten stale very quickly. You wanna know how WWE rectifies this? By adding Kane. Now I wished this match never happened. So, it's a brain-dead match that takes over an hour to finish, and about halfway through the match, I find myself wondering, why do I torture myself by watching this? All I can remember happening throughout the match is essentially, Kane and Triple H work together despite having beef over a year ago. Then they do. Goldberg tries to make a comeback and fails. Nobody cared. Triple H wins lol. Kane and Goldberg don't live happily ever after. Except for Evolution. Painfully boring, but a great example of why 2003 Triple H was the best for being the worst. Awesome promo though. Number 25. A 29-minute nothing match between Chris Benoit and Triple H. As usual, it's slow-paced to the point that it feels painful to keep watching. Eugene gets involved to pad the runtime of this. You know what? This match. Why would you give Benoit the title and not treat him as the champion? Isn't the whole point of being the world champion that you're the man or the guy now? Why would you have, arguably, your best world champion in a filler match? I know it was tough not having Triple H as world champion for a couple of months, but geez. As usual, WWE couldn't help but slowly hammer home the point that they didn't want Chris Benoit in the main event spot any further. Can anyone even tell me one memorable thing from this match that will make you want to actually re-watch it? If you said no, then their plan worked. And they'll continue this trend as they please until the absolute train wreck of an ideology they call booking a champion implodes on itself. To summarize, if you're a fan of Benoit, don't watch this match. Find something better. If you're not a fan, still avoid it. You'll just waste over 20 minutes of your life. And speaking of chump champions, this is supposed to be the legendary Randy Orton first title run that WWE always hype up? What a waste of time. I'll say this, the build-up was good, but how do you fumble the match so hard? It was a sudden and unexpected betrayal. That's fine. I mean, it is Triple H. Enough said. Randy Orton was very entertaining to watch as he got the jump on Triple H, making him run scared. This was good. Then we get to the match and everything falls off a cliff. The match itself is a heatless, lackluster 24-minute affair that not only put me to sleep but also solidified why Randy turning face made him look like a chump. It also served as a reminder to the fans that Triple H is inevitable. I mean, Randy tried his hardest, but it was obvious that his title run was over. You have the usual
numbers game overwhelms good guy. Spot that ends with Triple H getting the obvious win. And Randy, just months prior, was known as the Legend Killer. Of course people aren't going to cheer for Orton. WWE. Him losing here was comeuppance. It was a long time coming. Mini rant aside, another awesome promo.
Number 23 and 22.
Well, it was only a matter of time. I think the issue here is the whole identity crisis WWE had with Goldberg.
Essentially, WCW Goldberg was a monster who would make quick work of his opponents. WWE Goldberg gets one-shotted by a sledgehammer.
What followed next should have been straightforward, but instead, it was 14 minutes of pure boredom. I guess they did have some moments, but let's be real. Goldberg, who did a better job than Steiner, couldn't keep the crowd alive with his limited arsenal of moves. Triple H does the usual motions: ref bump, low blow, sledgehammer. Goldberg wins to wake the crowd up and send them home indifferent. Then we have the rematch at Survivor Series.
The build-up to that was little to nothing.
Triple H put a bounty on Goldberg. Goldberg gets kayfabe injured but still defends the world title. And then the same match happened,
except it was shorter.
And Goldberg won again in lackluster fashion. And then as the match finishes, I state, man, they really assassinated Goldberg's character.
Then Armageddon happened. Yada yada. Number 21. Everyone knows the story by now, so I'm gonna summarize it. Booker T, one of WCW's main attractions, ascended to the main event scene of WCW before its eventual demise. Fast forward a few years, and Triple H completely undermined and degraded Booker T's status as both a wrestler and a person for weeks with uncomfortable, racially undertoned promos. So the plan should be simple. Triple H versus Booker T at WrestleMania 19. Booker T picks up the win and title. Right? Wrong. Instead, WWE gave us a decent 18-minute match where Triple H won, thus solidifying his point, while WWE subtly admitted that they and their world champion are closet racists. This also stunted Booker T's main event run until 2006. So thanks, WWE, you always know to give the fans what they want. Number 20. Man, what a waste of time. Once again, just like with Randy Orton, the build-up was so good, but how do you fumble the match so hard? As expected, the betrayal was coming. Everyone knew it, but they still managed to pull it off. Triple H selling the looming threat of Batista, doing everything he could to keep him away from a title match, was a very nice touch. Watching Batista secretly stake his claim for the world title was very entertaining, with all of it culminating in the famous thumbs down moment as he got the jump on Triple H. This was amazing. Then we get to the match, and everything falls off the cliff into the void of mediocrity. Seriously, where did they go wrong? It felt like I was watching a 2003 Triple H match again, same overused spots. Batista overpowered Triple H and vice versa. Triple H did generic heel spots, 1, 2, 3. But Batista persevered and won to start the end of Triple H's reign, so at least there's an upside.
Number 19.
What a boring RVD match.
Yeah, I said a boring RVD match that went too long too.
Now to be fair, they didn't really have any time to build a meaningful rivalry, with Triple H being given the World Championship and RVD becoming the #1 contender in the same month. Does that mean the match made up for it? No.
There's constant slowdowns just to either mock or because someone's on the outside.
RVD does his cool flips and tricks for a comeback to revive the crowd, but it doesn't last long.
Ric Flair runs in and helps everyone finish the match.
Seriously, rewatching this match, this was an omen for the following years to come.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Why did they do this? Just to get straight to it?
They're all copy and paste.
It's literally the same.
The Hell in a Cell match went on 21 minutes longer than it should have.
The crowd fell asleep watching Kevin Nash wrestle.
Mick Foley couldn't save the match when he was brought into the mix.
Their forgotten street fight at Insurrection took too long to start and ended too quickly at just 16 minutes with nonsensical overbooking. And finally, their shitty first encounter at Judgment Day that went 7 minutes.
Nash punked out Triple H.
Just because Nash is too tall and scary for him. Copy and paste. Don't waste your time.
Number 15.
Man, the only good feud to come out of this awful reign, and this is how it ends, a 14-minute match that was doomed from the beginning. Now look, Michaels had a legit knee injury, and Taboo Tuesday was, simply put, people power, but that doesn't excuse the fact that they didn't really have to do this match. First off, Shawn Michaels' knee injury meant he wasn't at 100%, so why did he show up? Second, and this might be the biggest takeaway, Benoit and Edge are right there. If you can't tell, I'm stalling, because I'm so tired of talking about this. So as for the match, as I said earlier, it's a 14-minute match that feels longer and was doomed from the beginning. Shawn Michaels had a legit knee injury, and unsurprisingly, Triple H worked his knee for most of the match. Then, Shawn Michaels makes a comeback. The people seriously regretted their choice, and it clearly shows as they stopped caring. Jealous Edge helps everyone finish the match. I'm done. Next.
Number 14.
Not too boring, but it's completely forgettable. The story is that due to the wacky antics of Eugene, Triple H lost his chance to recapture the world title twice in a row. So now, Triple H hates him and has a chance to end his career. Please keep in mind that Triple H didn't even like Eugene and was only using him to try to secure the world title because Eugene is related to Eric Bischoff. As for the match, it's just a TV match on pay-per-view with a lot padding to fill the runtime. Eugene does other people's finishers. He's a face. The crowd boos. Triple H does Triple H. He's a heel. The crowd cheers. Pointless Regal Flair interference spot. Triple H wins. Enough said. Next.
Number 13. Oh yeah, it's the forgettable Survivor Series match that could have been an Elimination Chamber match. I'm sure on paper this worked, but in all honesty, it should have just been Evolution and Edge versus Team Orton.
Instead, we got Team Orton versus two-thirds of Evolution, with Edge and Gene Snitsky, who by this point was over with the crowd for causing the miscarriage of Kane and Lita's child. Yeah, Raw in 2004 was a weird time. As for the match,
I barely remember anything that happens in the match as a whole, and that's good.
This entire match had me counting the remaining time left, but off the top of my head, I remember Randy's pointless get back by winning the whole thing, Chris Benoit being eliminated first to continue his decline from the main event scene, the pointless Maven and Gene Snitsky stuff, and heel Edge being too desperate for my liking. Ultimately, forgettable, and would probably be best as background noise. Next.
Number 12.
So you know how Booker T is supposed to get a rematch for the world title? Yeah. That was wasted on the go-home edition of Raw. Instead, you get this match. Another TV match on pay-per-view. Great. There were no stakes or anything special. Booker, Jericho, and Michaels obviously carried the match when it was their turn, but still, Booker T deserved better. Ric Flair is old and looked better in 2002. Triple H does Triple H. And, as I said before, Nash can only do a couple of moves. Nothing special. Tune in when Booker, Michaels, and Jericho tag in, but you aren't really missing anything overall. Next.
Number 11.
A match that has the possibility of crowning a new world champion with these competitors, and it's an elimination chamber? Well, it sounded good, the match was fine, but the ending was obvious. I mean, it is Triple H. Need I say more? As usual, Benoit's wrestling is undoubtedly always good to see. Then he got eliminated. Great. Batista running wild was awesome. Then he got eliminated. Great. The tension between Triple H and Batista was nice to see. Then Triple H won the world title. And that's about it. Everything else felt like I was rewatching Styles versus Nakamura at WrestleMania. There were good moments, but also dull moments that made the match, simply put, drag out. And considering the star power going into the match and that it was just an excuse to give Triple H the world title back after 2 months, I would say this sort of feels like a waste of an Elimination Chamber match. Okay, here we go.
Number 10.
Rewatching this match, it's fine. It's just fine, and it fits right in the middle of the Triple H versus Batista spectrum. Apart from the underwhelming story they told to hype the match, this match had decent action. Don't get me wrong, the match itself gives off TV on pay-per-view vibes, but after 8 minutes, the match is worth watching. Of course, you have the usual. Triple H and Batista go back and forth. Then Triple H works Batista's back before Batista makes his comeback. Triple H does Triple H, you know, the usual. But despite all that, Batista perseveres through all the booking mess to hit the Batista bomb, retain the world title, and remind us that Raw is his show now. And that's just fine. And speaking of ex-Evolution members, I guess Randy and Triple H can have at least one good match. The energy here was a lot better than their Unforgiven match, so I'll give him that one. Randy Orton's story about finally getting a world title opportunity after months and months of Triple H shenanigans was nice, because it wasn't as pointless as I thought it was, and now he understands what it feels like to be on the other side. So that's another one they get. There were a couple of moments where it did look like Orton was more aware of Triple H's tactics, making it feel like he was going to beat Triple H. And there were moments where Triple H actually felt bearable to watch by being a decent heel. So that's another one. The true highlight was when Orton suffered a kayfabe concussion. They did a really good job of selling it to the point that I was convinced that Orton legitimately did suffer one. His facial expressions and sluggish movements were impressive and only heightened my suspense. But yeah, it was obvious. Triple H wins. LOL.
Number 8.
It's the inaugural Elimination Chamber for the world title, and Shawn Michaels is involved. It was alright. It was a much-needed change of pace, since, prior to this match, I had struggled to stay awake through 2 absolute trash matches that, for whatever reason, were deemed good enough for a world title opportunity. Rob Van Dam being so great that he gets eliminated. Jericho being a glorified highlight reel moment guy, right up until his weird last-minute infighting with Triple H. Triple H finishing the match, despite the accidental frog splash spot that crushed his throat early into the match. Props to him. And those last 5 to 10 minutes that Triple H and Shawn Michaels have as the final 2, picking up where they left off from their SummerSlam encounter, leading to Shawn hitting that great, match-ending sweet chin music, were not only a good way to spice up Triple H's mundane reign, but also to continue their awesome rivalry. Just great to watch. Oh yeah, and before I forget, whatever the hell Shawn Michaels was wearing on that night, just whatever.
Number 7.
Upon rewatching this, I wouldn't say it was the greatest rematch with these 3, but it was still okay. I mean, the WrestleMania match was like lightning in a bottle. It will always be favored and awesome. A one-time spectacle, no matter what. But this was okay. I mean, if you can look past the whole thing playing out as Triple H versus Shawn Michaels featuring Chris Benoit, then yeah, it's just okay. If I had to summarize this, it would be a 1v1 until the third person comes back in and switches out with one of the other men. This leads to Benoit getting worked over at some points while getting in little offense. Good offense as only Benoit could do, but still little offense. The real highlights were when Benoit was being showered with admiration because he's the hometown hero and pretty much making Canada's #1 hated superstar, Shawn Michaels, tap out in the middle of the ring to win and send the crowd home happy.
Number 6.
Now that's how you book a Hell in a Cell match. Good selling by HBK with his back injury, and good job by Triple H for actually being a good heel for once by targeting it throughout the match, serving as a callback to their SummerSlam match. Shawn's undying determination and Triple H's willingness to do anything really helped sell the face/heel dynamic, and it was so great that it flowed into their style of impactful wrestling throughout the match. With each chair shot, basic move, or use of the cell's walls, it really felt like these two were hell-bent on making sure the other would stay down. The added measure of them hitting their signatures and finishers in the hopes that it would be enough to get the 3 count, only for it to take 3 pedigrees to finally finish the match, was a good touch to end this match. So with all that being said, why is it not at least in the top 5? It's real simple. It drags on for too long. And that's really it. Another awesome promo too.
Number 5.
This has to be arguably one of the best last man standing matches, and one of the best matches these two have had. Now, you can argue that this match drags on like bad blood. I mean, it's a last man standing match, so of course it'll drag on, but there's something amazing about watching these two go at it for the next 23 minutes. From the good execution of technical wrestling on display by HBK and Triple H, to another instance of Shawn's undying determination and Triple H actually being a good heel. The good pacing throughout the match, with them being laid out, gave everyone time to breathe, but still gave you that anxious feeling about whether they'd get back up in time. Then it boils down to who can land the final move to end it, with it all leading to the beautifully shot and seemingly unexpected sweet chin music at the end as both men collapse. This did make the finish a bit irritating, ending the match in a draw, but it's still something I could watch over and over. Oh yeah, another awesome promo for this match too.
Number 4.
These two had so many good matches that it's insane that Triple H actually had quality matches to watch. Undoubtedly, this match is awesome. The street fight portion was great, the back and forth action was great, and the weapon usage was nice, especially the callback with the steel chair. Despite the idea that it would drag on, the energy from the start carried it through to the end. The steel cage portion, obviously, felt limiting in terms of what they were capable of doing, Simply put, it's like every steel cage match ever. The real highlight of this portion was HBK's comeback against Triple H and Ric Flair. That was entertaining. And finally, the ladder match. Shawn desperately climbed the ladder to reach for the world title, while the crowd stood up and cheered loudly. Triple H got back up and sent him crashing to the outside, all while the camera captured the stunned crowd as he reclaimed the world title. Once again, amazing stuff by these two, and another awesome promo too.
Number 3.
The Triple H vs. Batista saga should have been more. They had an amazing story, but bland WrestleMania match and a decent Backlash match. But this was awesome. The story is a bit one note. Simply take what they did in 2019, swap the roles, and there you go. Now, as for the match, you want to see 26 brutal minutes of Batista and Triple H beating the hell out of each other? This match has that. You want to see some painful looking weapon spots? This match has that, and then some. Do you want to see the Reign of Terror come to a definitive end? This match definitely has that. And in all honesty, after everything was said and done, it truly felt like a breath of fresh air. Sure, it started off weak, but by the end, I can't deny it, and say these two told a story along the way that was poetic, well-deserved, and a long time coming.
Number 2.
And here we are back in 2003. If you're tuning in now, here's a quick summary. All of this, that, and these are all awful. What was even the point of this one? And 2003 Triple H is the best for being the worst. Now, with all that being said, this chamber match has to be the best thing to come out of 2003. Overlooking this, and especially that, this match was a refreshing break from the dictatorship of 2003 Triple H. While there were some good highlights, obviously the true highlight was Goldberg. While everyone showcased their strengths, Goldberg, who hadn't even entered yet, had been slowly built up as this unstoppable force. He was going to do what made him so popular in WCW, and when his pod opened, he did just that. Everybody got something. Orton, Jericho, Michaels, Jericho again, even Triple H sold for Goldberg, and then the ending came and went. But aside from that, everything worked together very well. There was no shortage of good moments, and everything just clicked. But I can't put it at number 1 because that spot belongs to this match. Where do I even begin? The lingering tension between Triple H and HBK, especially the "what's it gonna take, Shawn" promo, had me hyped for the rematch. But how could they top their last man standing bout? Well, with Benoit staking his claim for the title, that's how. His promo about why he was going to win didn't really sell me on wanting to see him, but the tension between Benoit and Michaels made up for it. As for the match, there were great moments from Shawn and Benoit doing some technical wrestling which I never knew I needed until now. Triple H and Shawn reminded the fans of their intense rivalry and how badly they wanted to be the ones to finish the match, even going so far as to stop Benoit from winning. But the true overarching story of the match was Benoit proving his worth. Despite the momentum killers, his hard work paid off when Triple H tapped out, leaving Benoit standing tall with the world title. This has to be the best match of all time from this dark period. Now that everything has been ranked and my points have been made, I believe it's time to assign a final grade to Triple H's Reign of Terror. In 2002, the pay-per-view events were a mixed bag. Unforgiven and No Mercy were, at best, terrible. But Survivor Series and Armageddon salvaged the year's excitement with the return of Shawn Michaels. C+. With 2003, all of this, that, and these are all awful. And this was pointless. The only highlight of the year was SummerSlam. So naturally this gets a D. In 2004, the year was another mixed bag. While some matches were worth re-watching for their storytelling and star building, others were, at best, forgettable and not worth revisiting. C-. And for 2005, the chamber match was somewhat good, but a waste. The Rumble was solid, and the Triple H Batista saga told a slow burn of a story that ultimately ended Triple H's reign. B-. As for the overall grade, C. Sounds about right.